Welcome to Change My Movie Mind, the debate show where Anthony from Tis the Podcast and Jay from Filmstrip Podcasts take a topic, present opposite sides, ask the questions, and then decide who should change their movie mind. I'm your guest judge for this episode, Sully from the Jacked Up Review Show, recurring guest on Munson's at the Movies. We analyze pop culture one bad franchise at a time. Anthony, Jay, welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
Doing well.
Perfect. Our topic tonight, whose complex, infamous, somewhat agreeable, and controversial filmography is better? Zombie and war movie and superhero maestro Zack Snyder, or horror remake and dark comedy connoisseur Rob Zombie?
Connoisseur and maestro are two interesting words, sir.
I am being as nice as I can.
Yeah, so
I swear this is not biased. All right. Anthony, you will present on behalf of Zack Snyder. Jay, you will offer a case for Rob Zombie. Each host will present their talking points, hear a rebuttal from the opposite, and have an open Q&A section. Not sure how that's going to work. And then present final agreements. After that, I will decide who wins the round. Change my movie mind. Gentlemen, are you ready?
ready as I'll ever be.
Yeah. This may be harder than I anticipated, but I'm ready.
Yeah, honestly, there's just some intensity to this show I didn't anticipate, but okay. Yeah, you bring Sully on. Wow.
It's the first episode. We got to make it stay.
Yeah, the pilot's the one where you always got to set the ground rules. So
50 million people tuned in. No,
yeah, that if that happened, I wouldn't be going to work tomorrow, neither would Anthony. So
we got retweeted by Judge Judy. I don't.
That might also help.
Oh, the case for Zack Snyder presented by Anthony.
Look, gentlemen, when it comes to Zack Snyder and Rob Zombie, there's only one clear answer here as to who is the better filmmaker with the better filmography, and that is Zack Snyder. And I want you guys to think of one word: versatility. The man has made...
Hold on a second. The jury will disregard that last comment. Go ahead. Sorry.
As Sully said in the intro, the man has made a war movie. He's made an animated movie about owls. He's kicked off a cinematic universe of superheroes. He did a zombie... He remade a beloved zombie movie, and it actually scored well with audiences and critics. The guy is a maestro of visual storytelling. Whether or not it works for you personally, you cannot deny he has a unique approach to cinematography. His visuals are outstanding. And, he's intricate with what he does. I don't want to say he is a critically acclaimed director, because God knows he's not. But I mean, when you compare him to who he's up against here, the guy is like the guy. He's Francis Ford Coppola here.
The jury will also disregard the Rotten Tomato and Metacritic scores.
He has a passionate fan base about these movies. I mean, just go on Twitter, man. He's inspired some cults. But I mean, look, he's not a one-trick pony, and that's
Yeah. Your charisma might carry over on this one. Jay, you will make a rebuttal for the Snyder case.
Well, I think it's interesting that you say his strength is his versatility. And my response to that was, what if you suck at everything, though? I agree on his best work being Dawn of the Dead. I saw that movie on a date with my then girlfriend, now wife. And we both enjoy that. And that one's still fun to revisit. I do agree. We're not everybody can have their own personal taste. That's cool. We're just kind of talking through which one should survive here. That's good. But I would ask this question, and I don't think there is an answer to it, so it's rhetorical in nature. What's his most original idea? That's right. He doesn't have one. So Zack Snyder borrows what other people do, and then he builds on top of it. And much like the Jeff Goldblum character in Jurassic Park, he never stops to ask if he should before he asks if he can. And that's my argument against Zack Snyder.
There is an answer to that question, though.
Oh, please.
Guardians of Ga'Hoole.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay.
They both done cartoons.
The government will stipulate. So.
Government will not be allowed in this courtroom. We're on pay-per-view. We can say whatever we want.
Okay. Yeah.
All righty. The case for Rob Zombie, presented by Jay.
I want to start by addressing something that my esteemed colleague Anthony said. You can't just be a one-trick pony. But you can if you're really good at it. Ask AC/DC and their 50-year rocking balls career that they have. Rob Zombie has a vision. Whether you like it or not is contrary. But the man has a vision. House of a Thousand Corpses is the 70s spook house on steroid. It's his Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'd argue it's even more fun than the original. Ooh, I know. I'm sorry, Toby Hooper fans, but it is. The Devil's Rejects is modern day Outlaws. And yes, it pushes a lot of buttons, but that's Rob. That's what he does. Halloween, the first half of that movie is brilliant. And it's the part he's most invested in. When they make him remake the John Carpenter movie, he clearly gets bored. Halloween 2 is actually a lot smarter than it was given credit for. All right. He was not going to let the studio ruin his vision. He decided to do it for him, but it's a horroring ride into insanity, and it grows better with time. The Lords of Salem is a supernatural bug nuts wild fest of things. 31, Terrifier, Anthony, owes itself to that movie's you went there aesthetic, because 31 did that. 3 from Hell is the grindhouse western from hell, and The Munsters is the thing that I know a lot of people hate on that. Rob Zombie took a childhood favorite, did a backstory to it, and made it PG funny. And that, to me, is a mark of, you know what? I may not love all those movies. I do not. I'll tell you now. But I think the vision he has, the through line that he hangs them on, and the aesthetic that he proposes works as a more cohesive filmography than Zack Snyder's. So that's my argument for Rob Zombie, is that it's not the big variety. It's I'm going to find my 3-chord blues rock lane and I'm going to bang that drum as loud as possible.
All righty. Anthony will rebut the zombie case.
You're right. He has no versatility. His vision, though, is a ripoff of Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's all he wants to do. The guy would retire happily if somebody gave him the rights to remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's all he did with House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, 3 from Hell, and Halloween. And Halloween 2. He turned Michael Myers into a relative of the Sawyer family, and it did not work. It didn't resonate. This guy, apart from the most hardcore horror fans, doesn't resonate with anybody. His vision is, how can I make a movie as white trash as possible so that, all my characters can live in the same world as the Sawyers and Leatherface. That's not a vision. That's an aesthetic. I have my favorite movies too. I would love to make something like The Godfather or the original Star Trek or Star Wars, but ripping them off is not a vision if I did get to do it.
All righty. So you guys have not convinced me on either one having originality, but you have convinced me on both of them loving what they really like to do for a living. So, yeah. Zombie makes Tarantino-esque white trash horror films, and Snyder likes making stylish slow motion epic movies. So,
Your Honor, if I may
yes,
counter quickly, I did not mention that Rob Zombie's work into the animation era is also of note here. Mm-hmm. The Haunted World of El Super Beasto.
There we go. Okay.
Is Rob Zombie doing Scooby-Doo, and it's the perfect person to do that. Outside of Matthew Lillard being cast as Shaggy in life, because that is perfect. That's a really good piece of work. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I would line up and watch Werewolf Women of the SS. That's the best thing about those Grindhouse. So I would go for those. So I think Grindhouse is an aesthetic, and Zombie does it. Much like Super Sheen slow-mo is Snyder's aesthetic. That's really what we're talking about. Grindhouse versus slow-mo.
Perfect. All right, gents. Make these next 2 to 3 questions about the case you presented count. An open Q&A will commence. I don't know where this is going to go. I really don't. All I will say is make your Jedi mind tricks really work, and play nice.
You mentioned the monsters, Jay.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Rob Zombie has gone on and on and on about how this is his favorite property of all time. He wrote a song called Dragula. He's done Munster's commentary with the original Eddie Munster and everything. I think it says a lot about the man's filmmaking style that when he does finally get his hands on a property he loves, he completely touches it. He does. He doesn't make a Munsters movie. He makes a weird backstory leading up to the Munsters that nobody wanted to see and didn't resonate with people. What kind of, like, I guess my question is, was that visionary in your mind? Like, why did he do that instead of adapting the Munsters for the big screen?
I can answer that. It's a very good question, and a fair one. I would posit. He did that because there is absolutely 100% no way to satisfy fans of that property by remaking what you already know and what you already have. Number one. So what do? You go back to the front part, much like with his vision with Halloween. He knows you can't remake Jaws or the Wild Bunch. So why bother? Why not give it an interesting lead up? So he decided, I'm going to do that with Munsters, but I'm going to do the thing nobody thinks I can do. Because look, I'm going to be honest. When I heard Rob Zombie was doing the Munsters, I said, get ready for the dirtiest, nastiest Munsters movie ever made. Because I thought
Jury will add Gremlins and Die Hard to the list of movies that shall not be remade.
I would second that, Judge. But anyway, I thought, oh man, this is gonna. I don't know. I don't know if the aesthetic is gonna work.
Hold on, sir. We got to kick 2 people off the jury now. They're shaking their head during the remake comment. My 2 secretaries will, on emergency nature, pose here for the last half of this trial.
I think I need Dustin Hoffman to come do a voir dire for me. But anyway,
yes, we are asking Rain Man to come here on his way now. What? It's an act? Damn it. I thought it was real.
Back to where I was. So Zombie decides I'm going to do a front story, and I'm going to do the thing nobody thinks I can do. I'm going to do a PG, goofy kids version of this because I was a kid when this came out, and I'm going to make it work. Now, no lie, as we've already said, didn't resonate with critics or whatever, but as we've already said, we're going to leave Metacritics and all that to the side. Just in terms of executing a vision, that was Zombies, and I would argue it's a good idea, and I would bet you in 5 years, people are going to go back to that and go, you know what? That's actually kind of fun. It's kind of cute. It was a good idea at the time.
You mentioned the Halloween remake, and I said, oh, I know it can't recreate Jaws, so let's do its own thing here. He completely undermined the character of Michael Myers by having him come from the white trashiest family with the white trashiest parents and a stepdad who wanted to diddle his own daughter. Like, no wonder that kid grew up to be a serial killer.
We are talking about a series that features cults, druids, adopted nieces, and a kid that is apparently born from Michael Myers in its 6th iteration. I think Halloween could withstand that. I would argue that as a counter to what you said.
I agree with you that Halloween has gone some weird routes over the years, and maybe Zombies just fits right in with it. But is it Halloween to turn Michael Myers into Leatherface, a Leatherface wannabe, a hulking giant who bursts through walls and likes to torture his victims?
Judge, may I answer that with a question?
Yes, you will.
Well, I would say this. Is it okay to take Ghostface, a horror movie icon about horror movies, and have the last iteration go, who gives an F about movies?
Move to have her stricken from the record. It has nothing to do with.
All right, Anthony, I have a question for you. You say Zack Snyder is a visually interesting filmmaker, that he does things spectacle wise with the camera that you don't get from anywhere else. What's the most visually interesting thing he's ever put to film that you can't trace to someone else directly?
I would go to his two fully original ideas: Legend of the Guardians, Owls of Cthulhu, and Sucker Punch.
You don't think Sucker Punch owes a lot to Sin City and other Robert Rodriguez type fare?
Robert Rodriguez will be stricken from the record. He's not on trial today.
I do not. Sin City was way more noir, and Zack Snyder did something way more interesting than just another noir movie with Sucker Punch.
I just mean visually, not story-wise, visually.
I will answer your question with another question. Does Zombie do anything that wasn't inspired by Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes, because Rob Zombie believes in soundtracks that aren't a cacophony of kitchen noises. One. Two.
The
Zombie is really
cannot testify here today. Anyway,
Zombie is really good, particularly in those Halloween flicks, but also in it happens a lot in 31, oddly enough, in these long track shots that look like they're just one shot. They're not. There's cuts all through them if you know where to look, but they're real smooth. And for a guy who's not the traditional filmmaker, film school guy, I give him credit for knowing how to assemble shots and cuts that flow and look like they go even in small spaces. The very end of Halloween, when he has Laurie and Michael chasing each other through the old Myers house and basically having a WWE like cage match in the house. Because Tyler Mane, why not?
That's great. That's great Halloween to me.
Would be more Starcade, actually. But besides whether it's Halloween to you or not, doing that and making that look good in small space takes an art form. And so I think that's a little more visionary than what Mr.
Well, Zack Snyder has an art form too, and it's called the slow-mo. He's the king of slow-mo. And while I will give you that sometimes it's overused in his films,
John Woo did not hear this iteration. Anyway, go ahead.
It is always visually stunning, and he does it very well in terms of the actual slow motion and the way he just speeds it up after to get to the point.
I would counter that sometimes that works, and then sometimes it's a detriment, much like lens flare is another filmmaker's.
J.J. Abrams will not be invited to this courtroom.
I did not mention him by name, Judge. I just said this. But
just a disclaimer.
The fact that you have to slow things down means you've got too much crap going on at one time for people to notice. And so I would ask, wouldn't you be smarter to just focus on smaller, simpler elements like Zombie does so that the audience doesn't have to be slowed down and sped up to catch up?
And I would counter that with another question. Wouldn't you rather do something a little original and challenging to the audience than just make another Tobe Hooper remake?
Oh, I think Rob Zombie's material, you can say a lot about it, but to say it doesn't challenge the audience is not a fair assessment.
All right, since we're going in circles here.
You're correct.
We've already heard about the whole original or not. We already know they at least both these guys got their own style. I need to hear more on that you are entering the right direction. Tell me more about how they impact audiences.
Yeah, so to that point, I'll do that. And Anthony, I know you had something to come in on there. Zombie asks the audience to feel uncomfortable for the entire ride, whether they came in wanting that or not. That is the ride you're going to get on. House of a Thousand Corpses is probably the best intro into this, because at no point in that movie can you be comfortable. And that's what Rob does. Zach asked you to slip into some familiar shoes that you love, but you feel like you ran in them better 25 years ago when Christopher Reeve was in them, and now you're just kind of replaying the hits. It's a cover band, is what Zack Snyder does.
Fully disagree. Zack Snyder, and that's the reason his DC universe didn't resonate with a lot of people. It was Zack Snyder's vision, And he said, check your preconceived notions about Superman, Batman at the door. We're not going for the bright-tided guy saving cats from trees. He is struggling with his humanity and his powers in this human world. I would argue Watchmen and Man of Steel and his three DC films specifically were Watchmen for sure was 20 years too early. That should have been made after the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's deconstructing things that do make people feel uncomfortable because nobody wants to go to see a Superman deconstructed. People want to see Superman
be Superman.
Helping Will Oleas across the street. But that's Zack's vision. He doesn't want them standing around in tights talking to one another. He wants to strip them down to their core. And whether that makes the audience comfortable or not, it challenges the audience to think of these people as something other than, caricatures in red types.
All right. Can I say this to that, though? There's a wrong-headedness in that, though, because the construct of the superhero, particularly Superman, is the ultimate force of good in the world that doesn't have to struggle with all the mundane junk that we live with every day, and deconstructing him to that demystifies the whole fun of it. Whereas Rob Zombie's characters are flawed. They are messed up. The world they exist in is messed up. And when you come in the door, Rob says, this world, with the exception of the monsters, this world is messed up. Get ready for the messed up.
And we disagree.
Then you disagree. Okay, well, give me why though? Because Superman
the
is
whole
built to be the
whole
ultimate good in the world.
Nope, the whole conceit of Superman in the comics, especially Christopher Reeves. That is Christopher Reeve's Superman, what you're describing. But the whole conceit of Superman is he is more human than you and I, despite being an alien. And humans struggle. Humans are not perfect. And that's what Superman's supposed to be. And Zack Snyder understood that aspect of it more than he should also be this good, positive person. But Superman is not supposed to be the ultimate good, ultimate positive, ultimate guy in the world. He is supposed to be human.
I don't know, man. When a guy punches out Hitler on the printed page, I'm pretty sure that's the ultimate good in the world that ever existed. So I don't know. You're making an interesting point, but cinematically, just talk about the cinematic idea again, is Snyder is presenting people with something familiar and then twisting it in front of them when they don't want that. Whereas Rob Zombie tells you straight out, you may not want this, but here it is anyway. Now eat it or don't. And I would argue there's more respectability in the latter than the former, because it's, what you're going to get when you go into a Rob Zombie flick.
Shock and gore do not, as much as I love that, as much as a horror genre is my favorite genre, as you know, shock and gore do not make an interesting movie.
Not always.
You think of and Zombie, you can literally pick up his wife and put him in any single movie, and she's the same character in every single movie.
So is Rebecca Pigeon, and that works out pretty good for Mammoth. So
Unfortunately, Mammoth will not be put on trial.
Mammoth on Trial, by the way, sounds like a 90s spoken word band. I just want that entered into the record. So
Mammoth on Trial.
You make good points, Anthony. I'm not gonna lie, but if we're arguing who has the most original filmography, then I don't think it's close. I really don't. So based on what we've talked about.
It's Zack, but here's the thing: you look at Zack, all of Zack Snyder movies are different. They may have the same visual style throughout, but they are all different. He has different genres. I'm fine with somebody sticking to one genre, but at least make something different within that genre. And I'm sorry, there you could put House of a Thousand Corpses and Halloween and Lords of Salem together, and my God, I get it. You love the white trash cursing, ultra gory, fucked up families. Make something different within the horror genre. I would love to see him take on something Shining-esque.
He did. It's called The Monsters. Nobody liked it, you said.
Okay. So one film different.
Also, Halloween 2 is nothing like Halloween 1 or really anything else he's made. That movie's an exploration in insanity on a level that we are not comfortable talking about in any company. And I think is an incredibly challenging film if you can take away the Halloween fan.
Exactly. You literally just made the argument for Snyder that that's not what people who wanted Superman were sitting down. That's not what they wanted.
You go back now though, and I was on the front end of this. I want to say, for the record, it's in Film Strip, that people have reevaluated that Halloween 2 now and are like, no, that's way better than the 2007 one. And it's actually really smart. It's a good movie, Much the way Halloween 3 Season of the Witch has gotten a reappraisal.
It's fine, but he's cheating, calling it Halloween. It's not a Halloween movie.
Well, that was the studio. That wasn't his fault. So
it's not a Halloween movie. It's not.
No,
and it's not even a smart psychological film.
I would argue Man of Steel is not really much of a Superman movie either, but
it's not even a smart psychological film. Having Laurie, so
there's the key word: psychological. Mentally, these movies are not what they say on paper. So I think we're getting distracted by their titles.
They're games that both directors play with the audience, which, by the way, I will admit right now makes me mad as an audience member sometimes, because I'm like, I went in for this and I got this other thing, but that's what film does. It's supposed to push you.
I would agree with that, but when you have a beloved franchise, you expect certain things going into it.
Let's be real. Both of these guys took beloved franchises and drove them straight into the wall. So we are arguing about two complete train wrecks, but I love that we're arguing it spiritedly on both sides. I have no more questions, Your Honor.
I don't know what you guys are going to ask. I still am indecisive, guys. I don't know where we're going to land. Final arguments.
Look, you just said it, Jay. Zack Snyder and Rob Zombie. It's like arguing between shit and vomit. Like, okay,
like, hold on a second.
Which part of the flu do you want better?
Are you saying neither of you really like your creations that you're repping?
Your Honor, I make no judgment calls about my client. I'm simply here to defend.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter remains, okay? If I was on a stranded desert island with one of these movies, with one of these directors' complete filmography, I'm going to get more entertainment out of Zack Snyder's, because at least his is something different. He again, I go back to the different genres he's done: zombie, war, animated, superhero, action, dollhouse, pinup type movies, and at least I get some versatility there. Rob Zombie, I could live with one. I could have one of his movies, and it's basically akin to having his whole filmography. There's nothing there to keep me entertained. Like, I've seen them all, and that's just not true with Zack Snyder. And I will put my fate in the hands of the judge at this point.
To one counter on the desert island thing, I would definitely want the Rob Zombie stock, because one, it's shot on actual film, which will burn better than the digital garbage that Zack Snyder has. So I'm going to get real fire out of that. So there's that end of things. Now, Snyder's are longer, so the naps would be better. But yeah, I'm going to say this, that Zack Snyder makes accessible films for people who like the variety of genre he plays in. And the man's a competent director. His movies make money most of the time. Critics be darned. Who cares about that anyway? Really, we're talking about audiences, right? But he also fails his audience in some very significant ways sometimes, to the point that they brought in other people to, quote, fix his stuff, and those people make it even worse, which is amazing. Nobody comes in to fix Rob Zombie's stuff because, one, nobody can follow that killer, and two, it is a unique vision. So while the variety is not there, and I will not argue that, I go back to my AC/DC analogy to begin with. I don't go to AC/DC for variety. I go for balls out rock and roll. And I go to Rob Zombie because I want to play in the 1970s trash hillbilly sandbox, with the exception of the Munsters. And I just want to go into that direction. So I believe consistency matters and wins the race. So that is my argument for Rob Zombie over Zack Snyder.
All righty. I have emerged from my chambers. Okay. So, gentlemen, once again, before we went and orchestrated this, we knew this is not going to be clear cut as much as we'd like to pretend it was. It back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. A winner must be decided. I must confess, I have liked movies by both these guys. I have hated movies by both these guys. As much as there was an argument to be made that Snyder makes somewhat more agreeable movies, ultimately, Jay has put up more of an argument saying Zombie disturbs you more. So because we were fighting with feeling here, I must ultimately give the win to the Carney.
Is that me or him?
Zombie was raised on a circus. So, yes.
I would like to file a motion to appeal, and I will be submitting that motion in writing within the next week, Your Honor.
Well, Anthony, just so you know, Snyder made probably more money than Zombie, so doesn't he already win? Kind of?
I would say he does.
Okay, perfect.
You know, despite the rigged trial here, I want to
Oh my God.
I want to thank everyone for joining us for Change My Movie Mind. If you are using Spotify, you can vote on who you think won this round.
Yeah, you can also connect with either of our shows on social media, Tis the Podcast and Film Strip Podcast. You can let us know there as well. I want to say big thanks to Sully for the Jacked It Review Show for presiding over our discussion, and not just because I won, but thank you for being here today, sir. Really appreciate it. Tell folks how they can find your show and the things that you've got going on.
We have been debating numerous franchises. Jacked Up Review Show is on all platforms and all the socials. Just come have a party. Debate a cult show that you might have forgotten was a thing. Joke about social and political topics, and then get ready to discuss your favorite movie moments from a giant franchise.
And we will talk to you again next time for another round of Change My Movie Mind.